Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of That's a Nice Package. My name is Frank Mal, and in this series, I want to talk to you about groups of cards with strong synergies that can improve existing decks. Because it's great to talk about individual cards, but once you drop below that real S tier of cards of our format, cards are significantly enhanced by having the proper synergies. Professional Facebreaker is already a great card, not S tier, but it becomes absolutely broken if you have a Smothering Tithe. So that combination pushes that card into real consideration. If you're playing Facebreaker and Tithe, you should probably also be on Knuckles. Now you're working on a treasure package that might be able to replace a few unfocused cards in a blue farm list or Sisay. So what this series is about is finding those groups of cards that when played together create something that can make a difference. We want to find packages of cards that enhance existing play patterns of strong decks. And we want to limit decreases in overall card quality. We want these cards to stand on their own. Each package I discuss will be on my mocks field, which is linked below. We'll start with the core package, explain what it's doing, and why it could replace other cards in a more standard list, especially when combined with staples of that archetype. Then I'll have some cards in the sideboard, other cards to consider if you want to expand on the concept if you have the space. Sideboard cards could enhance what's already happening or add a new dimension to the package. Lastly, I'll put other strong pieces in the considering board, just to list some additional cards you might ask about but I don't feel are necessary, especially compared to other options. A package should be space efficient, maximizing what you're getting within as few slots as possible. So let's dive into the first package. And this is one that's lived in my head for so long, I just had to make this video and get it out. It's time to say, that's a nice package. So the package is what I'm calling Turbo Breach Lands. It was inspired by the release of Terra and the Wandering Minstrel in June. And the question I've wanted to know is, can Green add something to a Breach game plan that would make it worthwhile to move beyond the core Grixis shell and the gold standard color identity of Blue Farm? Green is clearly the least explored color when it comes to these strategies, simply because it's not in them. There are a few cards that people acknowledge are amazing when green is involved, namely Culling Ritual, but it's not a long list. Other 5C piles like Kenrith or Trad Sisay are mostly using green for dorks or big mana from a Kinnan or a Bloom Tender. For the best example of how people are using green in Turbo, check out the New England Clam Chowder primer. You'll see Culling Ritual, Elvish Spirit Guide, Kinnan, even Summoning Pact and Noxious Revival. These are strong cards, but it's not a long list, and really is just supporting the other colors that are doing the real work. Summoner's Pact is mostly there as a second Elvish Spirit Guide, which is nuts if you think about it, but makes complete sense. So if the list of green cards being considered in 5 color piles is pretty short, is the community correctly valuing the options that are available? And has a new card come on the scene that totally supercharges this color? I think so. This is Turbo Breached Lands, Shifting Woodland, Summer Bloom, Squandered Resources, and the big new hotness, Icetill Explorer. Each of these cards stands on their own. They're never going to be rotting in my hand because they support strong things that you'd already be doing in Blue Farm, like Ad Nauseam, Necropotence, and Breach. Let's start with Shifting Woodland, a card that sees the most current play in decks like TNT and Rogthras. What's so great about this card is, of course, that it can become a copy of a strong permanent in a graveyard without casting a spell. It's a land that uses its ability to become a copy of game-winning permanents like Necro and Breach. And because it's a land that has a good likelihood of coming into play untapped, it's good on its own. This is common knowledge. What this package is doing is adding strong cards that have synergy with this relative staple. Next, Summer Bloom. This card usually hits the cutting room floor, even though it's mana positive on the turn it's played with the right hand or board. Most decks aren't playing a lot of lands, and you need to be flooded with lands to make this work. It's also only useful in your main phase. On its own, it does 2 things. One is that hands with 4+ lands, a Summer Bloom, and a Value Engine or a Tutor become viable. Turn 1 Fish, turn 2 Summer Bloom, now you have 5 lands in play. That's an ideal case. any flooded hand can now be the start of a huge advantage if you have cards or an activated ability in the command zone like Sisay. The second is post-Naws. Especially if you hit that Elvish Spirit Guide, Summer Bloom can be a +1 ritual after a Naws. The third card, and this is where we start getting into my hot takes, is Squandered Resources. This card is busted. We're in a turbo meta, and this is a turbo card. It should be in every turbo list in these colors. With 3 lands in play, it's mana positive, and if you untap with it, you've got a huge burst of mana waiting for you. I recently untapped with this card in play, turn 3, Mystical Tutored in my upkeep, and cast a Naws, sacrificing all my lands. Not a bad addition to a turbo plan, but one that needs green. Finally, the new guy, and the one that makes this package, is Icetill Explorer. I recently said this card was better than the One Ring in a Discord, and was given a 5-minute chat ban for heresy. WotC design is also in a turbo meta. They're releasing so many cards so fast that it's understandable that this insect did not get the hype it deserves. You know how they said they should never print a card that gives both mana and cards? This card gives you mana and cards. Playing a fetch from your graveyard is basically the same thing as drawing an additional land, and you get to do it twice a turn and mill a card. Wow. In this turbo meta, tapping out is scary. The free spells that used to make us feel safe, people are playing around those. If you're tapped out and a turbo deck plays a Voice of Victory, you have 1 out, Force of Will. After that, you can draw all the cards off Rhystic you want, it's GG. Maybe Zirda slipped a Grim Monolith by you on turn 1, now they're following up with Zirda to combo off. Maybe you're facing some semi-blue nonsense. In this meta, you want a Tundra untapped. Now you'll have a much better chance to see another turn by threatening a silence, or be able to cast your Swan Song when they try to jam their breach. Even if you tap out for Icetill, and yeah, I know it's 4 mana, you're going to get that crucial extra fetch that you can use to keep you from losing on turn 3. So we can be aggressive with our Icetill in a way we really cannot with a Rhystic or One Ring these days. It's not a Smothering Tithe, but hey, nothing is. Now that we've cleared that hurdle, what else does Icetill give us? Don't forget that landfall trigger. You're going to be milling 2 cards for each fetch, allowing you to see a lot more of your deck and fuel your breach. If you survive that first turn cycle, now you're fetching twice more, and the card has netted you 3 mana and 3 cards in the form of 3 lands already. Guys, playing lands is busted. At some point, you could use that 1 Marsh Flat so many times that all 7 duels that it could find are already in play. But you also milled 14 cards. You also milled your Command Tower, your Cavern, and your Shifting Woodlands? Hey, wait a minute, what else did you mill? A Necropotence? And you're absolutely flooded with lands, so you can play that Shifting and then activate it for 1 green since the Shifting taps for green at instant speed, and at end of turn, that Necro, which you've already activated and is of no further use, goes away, and you get your draw step back? Now we're cooking. You found all the mana and cards you need to win. So we can see how Icetill Explorer is Shifting Woodland's best friend. I think it's clear that Icetill supercharges Summer Bloom, since you can play lands from your graveyard. But if you found your breach, but no Brain Freeze or Demonic Tutor, Icetill and Summer Bloom enable a new line. If you cast Summer Bloom with Breach and Icetill in play, you can play even 1 fetch land 3 more times, milling 3 cards, then finding 3 more lands, milling again. That's netting 1 mana and 3 cards in the graveyard for each Summer Bloom you cast. And each cast adds to the count of lands you can play, so you can cast it again to repeat the process. Those landfalls will pull additional fetches and other lands into your graveyard, letting you dig further. Since 1 fetch can find 7 duels, and since you're likely to find additional fetches in other lands, you could potentially continue this loop, mill your deck, and put all your lands in your deck onto the battlefield. You could even play a fetch that has already been exhausted and you didn't use to fuel your breach, and fail to find just to keep digging, using some of the mana you generated if you're in a real pinch. Out of Squandered Resources? Now you're guaranteed to end this loop with an empty library and every land in your deck on the battlefield. This line can now be your 1B breach line if you haven't found your Brain Freeze yet, you don't have mana or a high enough storm count to risk milling for LED, since you're essentially doing the same thing. Mill your library and give you the mana to cast and protect the Oracle. Icetill and Squandered Resources also make a great pair, letting you make extra mana in a pinch to cast that Ormschant, while mitigating the downside of sacking your starting town. So you can see that adding these 4 cards to your 5-color deck, not just your Corval deck, can give you new angles of attack. Could you find 4 swaps in your deck if it enabled all of this? I'd say that's a nice package. Now it's time to look at some cards in the sideboard that aren't strong enough on their own to make them easy to slot in, but work extremely well within this package. The first and most obvious one is Aftermath Analyst. While I didn't include it in the slimmest version of the package, since it's clearly a step below the others in card quality, if you add the Elf Detective, you're adding even more possibilities. Shifting Woodland, Squandered Resources, and Aftermath Analyst, together with 4 additional lands that can tap for 3G, produce a loop. If Analyst is in play, you sacrifice all your lands to generate mana with Squandered, then activate the Analyst to bring them all back to the field. From there, Shifting Woodland can become a copy of Analyst and activate itself, which will return itself to the battlefield, since it becomes a Shifting Woodland again when it changes zones. And it will be in the graveyard when the Analyst ability resolves. If any of your lands is a command tower, or the combination of lands has a good array of colors, you've made infinite mana, infinite landfall, and infinite sacrifices at instant speed. Use that mana to go for a win, or add a Mayhem Devil to deal infinite damage. Evendo Brush Razor will put your deck into castable exile. So adding that additional card could make sense in the right deck, if you have a mana outlet in the command zone, or the card quality hit is acceptable. How about some additional value? If you add Life from the Loam and 6, you've got a recursion engine for 2 additional cards. Life from the Loam could perform a similar role as Icetill Explorer, powering up your Summer Bloom and Squandered Resources and helping you play your Shifting Woodland if it gets milled. And dredging this card will put more of your deck into your graveyard, helping you dig for the right pieces. Life from the Loam also powers up your 6, which can become a great advantage engine. The attack trigger is fine, but casting game-winning permanents from your yard by discarding a land can overwhelm your opponents. Replay your Mystic Remora to reset it, or cast Breach multiple times after it gets swan-songed. Just watch out for exile effects like Force of Negation and MBT. As for other cards I'd put in the sideboard, Flagstones of Trocare is an interesting idea, since it can fetch any planes when it's sacrificed. With this package, you're much more likely to find Emergence Zone, and you can even recur it. I happened to play an Icetill after being milled by a Gyruda. I played Shifting Woodland and E-Zone for turn, passed, then activated Shifting Woodland to become a copy of the Necro in my graveyard in the end step before my turn. I activated the Necro for 18, going down to 3 life, then went through my phases to my end step, picked up the Necro cards, cracked the E-Zone, and pushed for a win. Reign of Filth would make a lot of sense here as a one-time Squandered. An Orcish Lumberjack, which has not performed well for me lately, but with 1 forest could power out a lot of these pieces, and probably earns its slot. So thanks very much for checking out this video. Please subscribe, I have a lot more ideas coming, and comment below. Does this package earn its spot in competitive 5-color piles? What other cards would you add? Thanks again for watching, and I hope I got you to say, that's a nice package.